Full wild card weekend has wrapped up, Bucks McGee, and I know you've got a lot of excitement to express, but we want to get the juices flowing a little bit, and we'll talk. To do that, we'll talk. We'll wrap up one of your favorite topics this season, that is the Buffalo Bills, and I guess the Josh Allen show has returned.
hmm I don't even know if I don't. Pittsburgh just didn't show up. I just don't know what happened here. It just got to give credit where credit is due. Josh Allen, did his thing, and Buffalo's moving on.
Yeah, for four total touchdowns, three through the air, a couple of rainbow fashion, one on the ground. He showed off his legs for a good, I don't know, 30 something yards or whatever it was. And
hmm
that they jumped out to an early 21 nothing lead. Pittsburgh got back in, started to claw back in it, but by that point it was almost just a formality at that point. So,
hmm
I mean, there's not so much to break down about as far as what the Bills did right, because they pretty much did everything right, and the Steelers couldn't do a darn thing right. But let's let's talk this kind of golden road that's been laid out for the for the Bills as far as the matchups that they've been um, presented with.
I got to give them credit. I've dumped on them the whole season, no doubt about it. But they've really shown out. That defense has really performed. Minus all the injuries they've had, they've really stepped up. James Cook is actually running the ball. It's like they have a run game now. For three-quarters of the season, we were like, James Cook, who, what, where? But he showed up. Um, at the end of the day, I just don't. I think Pittsburgh just didn't have the pieces. I think losing T.J. Watt was just at the end of the day, that was the difference. They had no real rush, and Buffalo was just able to do what they do, and you gotta give them props.
Yeah. Now that's like they that not only did they close out the season with a Dallas team that a few weeks back into the season that you didn't know which one was going to show up, a Dolphins
Mm-hmm.
team that was up and down. You didn't know which team they were going you were going to get out of them.
Right.
Then they get this first round game against the Steelers, who minus their best defensive player, probably their best player overall, and kind of being held together with paper with paper sticks and
Scotch tape,
yeah.
basically.
So they kind of lucked out with that matchup, and now they get Kansas City in the next round with this is to all the league's delight with the star-studded sparkles in their eyes, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, this is a Kansas City team that's not like we said all season, not the Chiefs team everyone's used to seeing. So
Exactly.
they really almost get this like perfect path paved to championship Sunday.
No, they definitely do. I think this is the matchup that everybody wants to see because this is Kansas City's first, trip out of Arrowhead. Everyone's talking about it. Like now, Mahomes has to prove it on the road. He's been able to, for years, play in the confines, of Arrowhead. Now he's got to go out on the road and put on a show. So it's a situation of is this Buffalo's best chance to dethrone Kansas City?
I
You
would
know,
definitely say, yeah.
you know, the cards are laid out perfectly for him. If Buffalo can't do it, then Buffalo will never do it.
No.
I don't think they ever will. Like it's been laid out perfectly for them. So it's up to Buffalo to really handle business, and it's going to be a great game to watch, no doubt. But yeah, Buffalo has earned the perfect and maybe the you don't want to say easiest, but the best route to championship Sunday. Now they just got to perform.
Yeah, and especially if let's say Baltimore's rusty, or Lamar's playoff demons return and Houston stays hot, and they get another home game after that.
Yeah,
It's really that silver platter. Here's the baseball on a tee.
yeah, exactly.
Out of the park.
Because, like you said, you don't know what Houston's going to do. Maybe Houston goes into Baltimore and just lays them out, and then it's like, all right, so is it Houston versus Buffalo?
Yeah.
Or is Houston the little engine that could and literally has a magical run to the Super Bowl? Like let's be real. At this point, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
At this point, as much as I hate seeing a division rival do well, they're the only team I can kind of stand at the moment.
At this point, I think you would be like, you know what? All right, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
To take down literally Kansas City or Baltimore or whoever comes out of this is something impressive. So it's going to be fun to see, but it's Buffalo has the chance. It's just whether they, did they basically shoot their shot here in this game, and now it's going to be a hangover next game. We don't know, but if you got Mahomes coming to town, you better handle your business.
Yeah. Where do the Steelers go from here? Do they just kind of have to dust their shoulders off and be like, hey, we kind of dug ourselves out of a hole here. We went through a revolving door of quarterbacks. We should probably just be happy with the fact that we got this far, or do they have significant, especially minus TJ Watt, or are there actually significant issues they need to work on?
Well, I think there's a lot more to it. If you watched, the press conference after the game with Mike Tomlin, someone was asking him the question, Mike, you've got 1 year left on your contract. He walked out.
Oh.
He walks out of the press conference. So it's a situation of either he's like, you know what, I'm tired of answering these questions. I'm here for the long term, or he's like, I don't want to touch it, and maybe he's not there next year. It's 1 year left, and everyone wants to, and give him his props. No losing seasons in his career, but that Super Bowl is long gone. You can't really hang your hat on that anymore. When you want to talk about his career in totality, then yeah, you can bring up that Super Bowl, but that Super Bowl was a long time ago. Yeah. So it's the NFL, as we all know, is a what have you done for me lately league, and it's a situation where maybe he's just burnt, maybe he wants a change of pace, who knows. But I think that's an issue. Kenny Pickett comes back, next year. I assume he's going to be the starter. You've got pieces there, but is this a Steelers team where you could say is going to be an elite AFC team, or are they just going to be a team that just makes the playoffs and gets bounced in the first round? Like, that lineup really doesn't scare you. The run game was barely adequate today. So, no, there's a lot of questions that they really need to answer. But I think the first question is Tomlin come back?
And you'd think it's a funny interaction, because you would think that coaches would want a distraction from a loss like that, where you were kind of taken to the woodshed a little bit, at least for most of the game. Mm-hmm. You think they'd almost welcome a distraction, but I guess that wasn't quite the distraction that Tomlin wanted to be asked about.
No, I think, and I can respect it. Like, that's really not the place for the question. Like, he's dealing with the fact that you got bounced out the playoffs again, and now people are going to talk and say, all right, you're the best regular season coach of all time, because you're not really doing it in the playoffs anymore. So I think he doesn't want to talk about himself, which I can respect. But yeah, there's a lot of questions in Pittsburgh, and they're really going to have to start answering them relatively soon.
That almost is reminiscent of the Roy Williams moment after Kansas City lost the national championship game, and Tracy Wilson asked him if he was going to take the Carolina job.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
He just snapped at her, and then 5 weeks later took the Carolina job.
Yeah, because we all knew he was going to Carolina, but we had to play it off and be like, well, how dare you ask that question, blah blah blah. And then, like you said, a week later, there he is, Carolina blue.
So yeah, I think you're probably onto something with just time and a place, and that obviously wasn't it, and he wasn't going to have it.
Exactly. After a playoff loss, no one wants to hear that question, and I can respect that. But it is a question that will have to be answered, and he will have to answer it at some point.
Well, I'm going to throw this one up on the screen here because this is somebody that maybe even predates your fanhood of Baker Mayfield. Thank you, Beer for Breakfast, Facts for Snacks. And I will give, sir, I will give you your moment in the sun right now because the Bucks closed this one out wire to wire. This game was never in doubt, and this was a very fitting way to end the Eagles' season, in which that now closes out, losing 6 of their final 7, and very much looked like a dismantled shell of them former selves. So, sir, the floor is yours. How does it feel to advance for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers to advance past the first round of the playoffs?
I always started off this way. Oh man, some people said 3 wins at best, top 5 pick in the draft. Team had no talent whatsoever. But lo and behold, there was a little man known as Baker Mayfield. And he was the little engine that could. Those who doubted him and these Buccaneers, enjoy your crow because now they are on to the divisional round. Everything after this is gravy. This has probably been the best season of football that I've ever experienced. And Nutmeg, you know how far we go with this. The man, can't see him, but to my left, the GOAT, ride and died with him from the beginning to the end.
Got a jersey over your other shoulder.
The jersey right there, we know. But this season has been unreal, and this team has just been, from where they were at the beginning of the season to where they are now, it's been unbelievable. They handled their business. The Eagles have a lot of issues. I don't know what's going on. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than what it was. So I know, Hurts had the finger issue and stuff, but AJ Brown wasn't there. But still, like, this team it just seemed like they phoned it in and just didn't have it. Their defense played, their line played well. I'll give them that. They did, for the most part, they got to Baker a couple times. I'll give them that. But I think you're going to see this Eagles team totally different than what we saw tonight, personnel-wise. I think there's going to be questions about Sirianni. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter. Baker Bay, 300-plus yards, 3 tutties, can't complain. And that Tampa defense, played extremely well. Very impressed. Levante David and the boys. So we're going to Detroit.
Yeah, and you can't, like you said with AJ Brown, you can't even necessarily say that receiver was a hurt position in this one because Devontae Smith, the often invisible Devontae Smith this season, had almost 100 yards before halftime.
Well, that's the problem. It's like they never, during the season, it was like AJ Brown, and oh yeah, by the way, garbage time. Here you go, Devontae. Here's some balls for you.
Or one game out of 6.
Yeah, exactly. And the run game, they just abandoned the run game, which surprised me. I thought there would have been a lot more, a lot more swift and such, but they just said nope. We'll run it a couple times, but it's going to be on Jalen Hurts, and Hurts just couldn't handle the blitz, and Tampa goes on.
This was as we've spoken numerous times in the past. This was, and I think as we've also said in the past, this was a rewarding season for you because it was such an emotional roller coaster, and you never really got a grasp of how good this team was or how bad this team was because they one week they were completely in it, and then the next week they're completely out of it, and then rinse repeat. So what was your kind of take as far as what you saw from them here against the Eagles, as far as compared to how the season went as a whole, up, down, like what parts of this team from early on September, October, when they were out of the gates hot and then struggling, to now you think overall improved to get them to this point?
Honestly, and I think I'm going to be honest. Baker Mayfield. It's just he grew with this team, and the offense just played to his strengths. Like you can say what you want about Baker Mayfield, but the guy just guts it out, and people want to play with him. He never blames anybody else. If a play goes bad or a series goes bad, if you're watching the games, you see him on the sidelines, and he's always coaching up, coaching up. He's never out of it, and you could tell that he had fun this season as opposed to what the last couple of years have been. And I think he's truly found a home in Tampa. Uh, he fits what they do. It's just an overall, this team, I think, believes in him and is willing to ride with him. So Mike Evans had some drops tonight, which, was a little concerning to me. Hopefully, that gets cleaned up, for next week. But Cade Otton, he had some drops, but he also showed out. And, Trey Palmer, showed, had a touchdown. I think you're starting to see some of the younger guys really contribute more. And, the key again is always going to be the run game. The run game is going to be key to this offense. So as long as we can run the ball, the play action is going to be key. So it's going to be fun to see. But I also believe this defense is going to be a big part of this next game.
The,
Go ahead.
the defense was the steady hand as Baker kind of had to find these grooves of consistency.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. The defense, this is probably the best the defense has played all year. I just, the constant blitz, which I at first wasn't a fan of. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's gonna be that like that Rams game a couple of years ago where, zero blitz and then, they knock us out of the playoffs. But it was a situation where, the blitz really bothered Hurts. It was really surprising to see, but this defense is very fast. They're not as big as they've been in years past, but they're fast. And I think that's really going to cause some trouble for some teams, as we progress in the playoffs. But overall, it was an overall great team effort.
Yeah, and as far as Mike Evans is concerned, with the season he had, especially with the new quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's earned a little right to kind of have an off game now and then.
Oh, of course, 10 straight seasons, over 1,000 yards, almost 100 touchdowns. Like, yeah, like it's totally fine because you were able to go to other guys. And I think that's shown how this offense has grown. It wasn't just Mike, just, Chris Godwin. There were other guys who were actually stepped up. And like, Cade Otton, the man had 10, 12 looks this game. He was really a focal point of this offense, of the pass offense. So I think you're really going to see, probably, next week, a lot more of that. It's going to be spread around a lot more. The offensive line still needs to pick some things up, but you just take it a game at a time. And, you're going to Detroit. You can't knock it.
How does that distribution of the offense compare to that of which you saw under Brady, at least in the last year of his tenure? Has this been an improvement as far as sharing the ball around?
It's hard to really gauge it because the offense is almost similar. Everybody, Brady, of course, is a better quarterback. Let's be honest. They compared their stats, basically their last seasons, and Brady had over 600 more yards than, Baker had. I think Brady ended his last season at just over 4,600. Baker just broke 4,000. Brady had that ability to make those throws in those tight windows and things. I think there are times where Baker tries to and he just can't. But I also think Baker's better with his legs and has that ability to pick up that first down when needed, where Brady not necessarily had that ability. So I think it comes down to Baker just being smart and not making those throws that he can't make, and just maybe sometimes eating the ball, throwing it away, whereas Brady could make those throws. But, for this offense, though, Baker, I think, is the perfect fit.
Of course, we can't end the discussion on this game without, similarly to how we did with Dallas on Sunday's show, where does Philadelphia go here with Nick Sirianni? Because this team throughout this horrendous finish to the season was extremely one dimensional. It was the Jalen show. They were force feeding AJ Brown, obviously up until this playoff game. The
Mm-hmm.
running game disappeared off the face of the earth. DeAndre Swift, who was so good early in the season, was completely forgotten man towards the end. So like, how much of that falls on the head coach, and what are the odds that they just need to move on from Nick Sirianni?
I don't know, but if you were to tell me tomorrow that the Eagles move on from him, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it was a situation where, they got comfortable in who they thought they were and, believed the hype and, just let it just fall apart. I don't know. It's really weird to see how this team has fallen from when they were 10-1 to where they were now. Like, what was the disconnect? And it's got to be something in the locker room. I can't figure it out. But, the end of this game, if you saw, Jason Kelsey, he looked pretty emotional. Like he almost felt like he was ready to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm ready to hang
Hang
it
up.
up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to be a case. They've got a lot of guys who still play at a quality level, but are getting older. Do you go back into the battle with these guys? Or do you say, you know what, maybe it's time we've got to start looking elsewhere and start bringing the young guys up? Because you don't want it to be a situation where you're hanging on too long. Because unfortunately, that's just the way the NFL is. You want to cut sooner than later, as Bill Belichick would say.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there saying, okay, what do we have for the future? If you really feel this is the best you've got and you want to go one more time with these guys, then that's fine. But you got to figure out, your passing game and your run game. Because for some reason, Swift just fell off. You had issues with AJ Brown. AJ Brown gets hurt, and all of a sudden you come back to Devontae Smith, but he should have been one of your prime guys throughout the whole year. Goddard was up and down with injuries. So it's going to be interesting what Philly decides to do.
Um, the now this was kind of a fitting way, I guess, to end this first round of the playoffs because all but that Detroit Lions game was a blowout, or at least a game in which the prevailing team jumped out to a pretty substantial lead right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what's kind of the overall result? Now, this is certainly not going to affect the NFL's pocketbook, despite the lack of competitiveness in these games. I'm sure every single one of them is going to be near the top of the television ratings chart. But like,
Mm-hmm.
just as quality assurance check on the league, how kind of quote unquote bad is it to have these games go the way they did?
I don't think it's a bad thing because it wasn't like it was all the favorites. Like let's be honest. Green Bay, blows out Dallas. No one thought, first of all, no one thought Tampa Bay was even going to be in the playoffs, and they, basically handled the NFC champion today. So I believe that it's great for the NFL because you don't know, you can't guarantee that the best team necessarily is going to make it. It's whoever plays their best that day. And I think that's the way the NFL's always been. So I don't think the NFL's hurt at all. I think if there were any issues, it was just that stupid Peacock fiasco, if you want to be honest. And to me, I'm like, whatever, dude. If I want to watch a game, fine. I got to pay $5.99. It's better than me going to a bar, paying $100 for food and drinks and watching it and barely being able to hear it. If I can pay $5.99, watch it in my house and buy my food and drink and be happy, then I'm fine. But no, I don't think the NFL is really hurting for this. I think they're enjoying the fact that you've got some teams in there that no one thought was going to be even close to making the playoffs. But that's just the NFL. There's parity. The years of there only being one team that you could almost guarantee was always going to be there are over.
So you don't think they're hurt by, let's say the casual fan that sees a 21 nothing lead, a 27 nothing lead, a this one I guess was kind of close for a while, but I think at one point it was 23-9 or whatever the case may be. So
Mm-hmm.
like games like that where the casual fan turns it on, the losing seed's not really in it, and then or not, or just completely blown out, so they just shut the game off, or fans that their teams aren't in it, they don't have a rooting interest either for or against, so they're like, oh, okay, I'm not interested in this because it's not close and my team's not in it, so they just turn it off.
No, because you know what it is? Those were the teams that weren't even supposed to be there. So I think it piques the interest and says, wait a minute, this team wasn't supposed to be good. So how the heck are they beating this team that's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be, the dominant team that's supposed to go far? So at that point, I think it piques the interest. It's like, okay, well, you got some teams in here that aren't good that are actually playing spoilers. So let me see why they're not supposed to be good. So no, I don't think it ruins it at all.
Especially in this game's case where people probably still expected Philadelphia to wake up. Uh,
Oh, definitely. I think everyone was waiting for Philly to have that to say, okay, let's wake up. Baker will, do something stupid or something will happen, and all of a sudden the Eagles will be back on that train. And it never happened. So I think for the casual fan, they're like, okay, well, why is Tampa Bay good? Why is Tampa beating this team that was, the NFC, representative in the Super Bowl last year?
one holding call away from immortality.
Only one.
Yeah, like 1 point better, one penalty flag better.
That's it. One penalty better is better than 1 point better. You just gotta,
Well, as your Bucks are turning to the divisional round, let's turn our attention to the divisional round,
yes.
real quick, and we'll go over these more in depth before next weekend kicks off. But the weekend, the Texans get that early slot yet again.
No respect for these
Respect.
guys, man. Like they like people are like assuming they're just gonna lose, man. Like, and you know what? They probably enjoy it. They're like, all right, fine. We'll beat whoever next and just move on.
Yeah. What do you think are the odds that they could give Baltimore a run for their money? Baltimore's favored by 9 in this one. It is the 4:30 ESPN ABC ESPN start on Saturday. Is this just are they? This they're obviously just continuing to play with house money, but what are the actual odds that they can give Baltimore a run for their
I give them a shot. I give them a healthy shot. Let's be honest. You've got, CJ Stroud. He's great, man. Like he is legit. Their defense is solid. If Baltimore has an off game, they're ready to pounce. It's great to have that week off and the bye and all that. Like that's awesome. But Baltimore's had that in the past and not exactly lit the world on fire. So I think you kind of have to be careful. If it's a situation where it's a close game, you got to give Houston the you got to give Houston the nod. I'm excited to see how this happens. If Houston wins this game, dude, all bets are off, man. I don't know who you're picking for the Super Bowl.
effectively 2 weeks off because they of course they rested everybody in that finale against
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
that's
Um,
true.
and that defense does have a tough task as far as shutting down Lamar Jackson. What's kind of your most obvious strategy to slowing down Lamar Jackson?
I've always been the proponent of keep him in the pocket and just force him to throw. Like he can throw, there's no doubt about it, but I'd rather him beat me with his arm than with his legs. Because if that's the case, then guys are breaking routes, and next thing you know, guys are catching 80-yard bombs off of like preschool plays, in the backyard. So I would rather him sit in the pocket and just have to actually read my defense and pick me off. If he can do that, then all the respect to him. But I don't want to scrambling Lamar. I don't want to play with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been beating people with his arm this year. um, the Saturday night prime time on Fox is the surprising factor going into the artist formerly known as Candlestick Park. Take on the Niners. Niners are early favorites by 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
I guess people may think that's a like, oh, so many points off a team that just whooped up on the Cowboys. I'm going to take the points on the Packers. But this also could be a reality check for Green Bay as the Niners are much more consistent than Dallas. So, what do you think as far as this one shapes out? Can the young Green Bay defense contain McCaffrey, make life miserable for Purdy, as we talked about the other night? What's kind of the breakdown of this one?
It just depends on what Niners team comes out. If it's the Niners that we know of at their best, if they come out and handle business, then this game may be over by mid of the third quarter. I give Green Bay much respect and all, but San Fran is just loaded. They're healthy and they're loaded. But if it's a situation where San Fran just for some reason isn't clicking and Green Bay can keep it close, then at that point you got to give them a shot. But it all, like I said, when it comes to having that bye week off, it's how you come out. I think you really need to come out, especially your first drive, and have a statement, and you got to score. You got to be able to say, yeah, we were off a week or so or two because we rested the final week of the season, but we are legit. We know what we're doing. We haven't rested. We're ready to go. But if you come off sloppy and the underdog is putting points up on you, and next thing you know you're down 2 scores, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and that San Francisco defense is obviously a lot more stout than the Dallas defense, which at times, even during the season, not just in the playoff game, had a lot of Swiss cheese holes in it. So Jordan Love is going to probably have a much more different experience as far as what he reads on the field versus what he just read versus the Cowboys.
Definitely. It's gonna definitely come down to the run game, and as long as Green Bay doesn't turn the ball over, you got to give them a puncher's chance.
Yeah. Well, speaking about the run game, as we turn to Sunday, your Bucks get the early slot, or I guess early-ish slot, as they kick off at 3:00. This is weird having a divisional weekend at 3 and 6:30.
Right.
The Bucks go into the Motor City. This one is on NBC. The Lions are favored by 6. I think that's probably fair. But how does this is obviously a big test for the Tampa defense, which, as we said, has been the strength of the team this season. And which one's a harder test for that defense? Is it Gibbs and Montgomery on the ground and maybe a little bit of Gibbs in the passing game? Or is it Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is it Raymond? Is it Laporta? Is it all these weapons that Jared Goff has to throw to?
Let's say it's the pass game. I think it's going to be the pass game. I think we'll be okay against the run, but it's definitely going to be the pass game because those guys have weapons. It's going to be one of those things where you just got to minimize the damage and keep it close. If it's a situation where it's the fourth quarter and we're down by 6 or something, I give us a puncher's chance. But the pass game, I think, is really gonna be vital in us trying to contain. But more than that, it's gonna be the atmosphere there. They've won their first playoff game in how many years?
32.
32. So that place is going to be beyond insane for their second game. So it's going to be us trying not to do too much and just focusing on what we need to do. But
and you can't rely on Jalen Hurts getting a tunnel vision against the one receiver because Jared Goff has not had tunnel vision all year, even with someone as good as Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Exactly. Goff has really grown up from his time in LA. So it's just going to be a situation of kind of keeping, the damage to a minimum. And like I said, if it's close in the fourth quarter, then, hey, we got a puncher's chance and you just take it and see what happens.
Yeah. And, of course, closing out, obviously, they put this one as the cap, the faux primetime slot on Sunday at 6:30, and that is Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, as the script is reversed from years past and not in Arrowhead in Orchard Park. Who knows what we're going to get for weather? We'll figure that out as the week progresses. Mm-hmm. Buffalo only favored by a mere 3 points in this one.
3? That's I don't know, man. I would have said 6, honestly, but okay.
I mean,
I guess
in theory, you always give 3 to the home team, so the
the
3-point line is really
yeah,
6.
the Mahomes factor, I guess. But that game generally just comes down to can Patrick win on the road? That's what this comes down to. It's their first game, in the playoffs on the road. Like I said earlier, it's always been about them and Arrowhead. So now you're coming to, Orchard Park. Are you going to be able to handle business? Are your guys going to catch the ball? Well, it's going to be. I think it comes down to the defenses. Who makes the play? Buffalo's had some injuries today to their defense. So they're going to have to, swallow the pride and figure out what they're going to have to do. Kansas City, not necessarily the defense, but the offense. Is the offense going to be able to put some points up on the board? So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a close one. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I almost think the Kansas City defense could be the deciding factor because the Buffalo's defense, injuries or not, has a bit of an easier assignment with Kansas. I know you don't want to ever say there's an easy assignment with Patrick Mahomes, but certainly
Right.
with the options he has to throw to. So Kansas City's defense could be more of the deciding factor, having to shut down a hot Josh Allen.
No, true. So I think the run game is going to be vital for Buffalo. They're going to have to be able to run the ball. So, but they're also going to have to make sure that, Diggs shows up, and you're going to have to make sure that the tight ends are showing up in the offense. It can't be just Josh trying to run around and make a play here and there. You need a total complete offensive situation with these guys, because if not, Kansas City might be able to pull it off. I'm not a fan of them. I still think they've got a lot of holes. They can't catch the ball, but with Mahomes, you got to give them that. Got to give them that shot.
I can't wait to see who gets the fraudulent call next Sunday.
Wow, yeah, because whoever loses, I think, becomes the king of Fraudulentville. So we're gonna find out.
Yeah. Well, we are going to find out. We finally get a few days off to recharge our batteries. Bucks McGee wild card weekend ended with a nice little cherry on top for you. So, your final thoughts on wild card weekend, this Tampa advancement, and the opening round of the playoffs as a whole. Sir, take us off there.
Well, like you said, wild card weekend. Dallas fans, I apologize, but just another year for you guys. Green Bay fans, be proud. Good job. But for all my folks in Tampa Bay, for all those who doubted us, Baker Bay all day, every day. The divisional is going to be interesting to see what happens. Can't wait. Nutmeg, it's been an honor, and we'll see what next week brings.